Excellent. Next up, we have Paul Jean Denny, and he is a data report writer specialist from Des Moines Public School. Paul, it is fantastic to have you with us. Thank you for making time.
You bet.
So tell me a little bit about how you guys, I mean, we hear a lot of different companies here. We had somebody in here that had food trucks. We hear, of course, a lot of enterprises using this to get customer insights. You guys have a really unique way that you use data in the public school system. Can you walk us through?
Sure, we actually do a
that?
lot of different things with it. We've developed somewhere between 60 and 70 dashboards now that we use within our environment. We've done everything from grade analysis at the teacher level so they can actually keep a good real-time view of the students' grade distribution. We use it for attendance tracking, of course, things like assessment, growth, and models. We've even gone so far now as to deploy it so our general public can see some things.
Wow.
They're able to look at school boundaries, for example, and find out, based on where you live, which schools you are in. So someone new to the community might be a little more able to find out what feeder pattern they're in, if you will. So we've done a number of things with it over about the past 2 years now.
That is really cool, and I would imagine you guys are on the pretty leading edge of this, especially in the public school space as well.
We think we are. We've got a goal to be one of the leaders in public education across the country, and so we've worked really hard at that. We've got a number of other, I say number, probably a handful, 3 or 4 other districts in the state of Iowa who are really going full bore with Tableau as well. And what we've done is we've kind of created a little repository where we share information back and forth, which helps a lot because at the public sector like this, you don't always have a lot of resources to throw at a project like a Tableau, like data analytics. Yep. And so by sharing things that we've done across the different districts, it's really made it easier for all of us to progress because we're not competing against one another like private industry would be. We should be all working together to improve what education we have right now.
That is very cool. And the one thing, as a parent of 2 kids in public school, when you said, share data back and forth, my little ears pick up immediately. What types of data are we talking about? And
well,
have you had to struggle with that?
Yeah, you interrupted, but in terms of sharing data, we don't actually share the data itself back and forth. What we're sharing is the schematics around what we've built. So let's assume that I've spent a week or 2 weeks building some report or some visualization. Maybe it's one of our early indicator systems, and I can talk about that in a little bit. Well, rather than having another district take those same 2 weeks of time to build a report that's similar in nature, we provide them with those schematics on what we built, the kind of the architecture of the report. They take that architecture, they can connect it to their own data source and not have to recreate those 2 weeks, and vice versa. So it's worked out really well. I saved a lot of resources on both ends.
That is really good. We had a consultant, Adam Needles, that was just here 2 speakers before, and he was kind of saying the same thing. We've got technology over here that you can't nothing you can just plug into your database or plug into the wall and it does exactly what you need. You've got to customize a little bit. And do you think that's a big value of the collaboration system that you've created and Tableau in general? Is it pretty easy to share that type of what's involved in sharing that that architecture that you talked about?
It is and it isn't. It all depends on what that background data source looks like. And I think anyone who's in analytics kind of understands that. In the state of Iowa, we have basically 2 large players who provide student information systems. So that background database system. And the one that's most prevalent is one called Infinite Campus that we use. And so the ones that are involved in this sharing repository have been primarily Infinite Campus users because the data structure in the back end is the same no matter which district you go to. So it's been very good in that regard. Now, if we start bringing other players into the conversation, which is great, it just takes us a little longer to get to that same point because it's a different structure altogether.
Right.
So, and I think going back to your original question, the difference here again, private industry is always competing against one another for market share. We're not doing that at all. We have no reason for us to hold on to some kind of a schema that we've created and not give it to someone else because it's all about our country's future. Our kids are what's going to make this country in the long run. So there's no need for us to hold on to that, we'll call it proprietary type of report.
Absolutely. And how did you guys even, it seems like, those are 2 ends of the spectrum, public education and big data. Can you tell me a little bit of the story about how you guys got this all going?
Sure.
What was the impetus and where did this come from?
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. I used to work for a reseller of Tableau prior to going back to the school district. I'd started my career with Des Moines Schools, actually.
Cool.
So I had spent the last 6 years of my career actually traveling the country, training different customers in K-12 on Tableau. And I loved that job, but what I didn't get to see was the end product. I could show them how to use it, and I never got to see and feel the excitement
Have fun, kids.
Yeah, exactly. We've applied it, now here it is.
Right.
And so kind of the drain of traveling all the time, being away from wife and kids, and wanting to see that end product took me back to my roots, which was Des Moines Schools. Cool. Des Moines had actually purchased the product about 2 or 3 years prior to me coming back, and it, for the most part, had sat on the shelf. There were a couple of people trying to use it and make use of it, but it hadn't been deployed down to any kind of a user level. It was primarily kept in the IT department and for doing things like looking at busing and how do we save money on energy and that kind of thing. Right. But we wanted to get it out in the hands of everybody else. So when I came in, and this isn't an arrogance thing, but they hired me because they wanted, not me particularly, they wanted to throw an FTE at this position. They wanted to say, okay, we've got this product, we need to decide if it's going to work in our environment or not. Right. And so by throwing a position at it, which happened, I was lucky enough to be me, they were able to actually devote the resources needed to have it take off. I've been there now less than 2 years, and it's just exploded. We get requests probably, I'd say 3 to 4 a week at least, requesting new reports, new visualizations, because they're getting a taste of what it can do. And now it's all real time. We're not waiting for someone to crunch numbers and put together spreadsheets and lay them out for them and decide, well, this tally belongs over here, which means this one's this. So it's right. A much more real-time, proactive approach, I guess.
Totally. And what you said something there that really made me wonder what the root cause of it is. You said they had purchased it and it was sitting on the shelf. Is that something like endemic? Is it just the risk adversity, or everybody's already stretched the limits and nobody wants to take it on as an extra time? Or what's
With my experience in education, I've been in K-12 education since I got out of college, so about 25 years now. Okay. I think the most part of it is just lack of resources. Yeah. Unless you're a very large school district, you usually don't have somebody who can get deep into analytics, especially your smaller rural type of communities. And so, in addition to not having that expertise to begin with, everything is spread so thin. We are tied. Yeah. We can't increase our budget numbers. We can't go out and have a higher margin in what we do. What we get is what we get, and we have to spread that and decide, is this going to go towards another classroom teacher so we can lower our classroom numbers? Is it going to go towards new techs? Is it going to go towards technology? Is it going to go to an FTE who can take care of doing our analytics? And Des Moines just got to the point where it was time to throw something at this product we were trying to use, Tableau, and see if it was the right fit. And once we were able to throw those resources, like I said, it just exploded on us.
Cool. So it sounds like you've been using it for 2 years inside the school system?
2 years at Des Moines, yes, and 6 years prior to that with other K-12 from the vendor side.
Gotcha. And how has perception and, like you said, adoption you've already spoken to, is this something folks understand, like at the teacher level, that it's a pretty low bar to realize, wow, I've got, here's a picture and here's the things. How do you guys help increase awareness of it? And is it something that you have to be proactive about, or do you find folks just word of mouthing it and coming back to you?
That's a great question. It's been an uphill battle. We're an environment of about 5,000 teachers. So it's a large deployment here, and every teacher has access to various reports in Tableau. So the approach we've been using now, because Tableau did not have a real strong reputation in our district because it hadn't been used those first few years, we started building things out, and as we did that, we started recording what we call kite modules. So they're online training sessions that go along with each of the different reports or visualizations we do. And they may be anywhere from 2 minutes long to 10 minutes long. They're short, sweet, concise. Yep. A teacher in his or her spare time, which there's a lot of when you're in the classroom, maybe during part of a planning period, has the ability then to go in and watch these and start to understand, well, what is this visualization all about? What does this mean? What is this color scheme all about? And what is it telling me? So not only are we trying to show them how do we use the report, but even more importantly, what does the report mean? What is the data behind it? Is there an actual meaning, something we can do proactively now as a result of that?
Got it. And you mentioned, 5,000 teachers, that's a lot of folks, and it's you and you alone, or do you have a team?
No, I've got there's about 7 of us in our department, our data analytics department. Myself and 2 of my colleagues actually presented here this morning. And 4 of us came to the conference this week. Very cool. Had to leave a couple back to kind of run the ship, if you will. Them. But yeah, we've got a good, strong team. In fact, we have recently just reorganized. Cool. We've created what we call our Office of Innovation. And we are the ones who are responsible not only for the data analytics, but also our student information system. And we work very closely. In fact, we're office right with our IT department, which is it's kind of a critical juncture. You've got to have access to the things you need to do things in Tableau, like the database itself. And so having that close relationship has been helpful. But we're about a staff of about 6 or 7.
So obviously, you started out as one person 2 years ago. You're up to 6 or 7. How is that? Have you guys hit like the sweet spot for what you think it's about? What a little less or a little more than one person for every 1,000 teachers? Or if other schools were trying to adopt this, what would they? When would they hit that first FTE? They were probably a little late bringing you in. What would be a good time for other schools to start considering doing this?
That's a tough question. It really is, depending upon what the demand is out there. I'm the only one of those 6 who is totally devoted to doing nothing but Tableau.
I see.
The rest of them are on about a 50-50. They do Tableau, Infinite Campus, and some other reporting and program evaluation things that we have need for. I'm not sure that you can look at any school district, regardless of how large or how small it is, and say, well, we're just going to allow this one person to do it in their free time, if you will. It's just not there. You've got to have that structure of at least X number of hours per day, per week, whatever it is, and devote to the product, saying, we are going to use this to better education, to better our education. And so I don't know that I can give you a good quantified number on that. I don't know that we're at the sweet spot yet. I think we're close. I do. I think it's only going to grow on us because, again, they're getting the taste of it, and now that they've gotten that taste, they just want more.
That's really cool.
It is.
And have you guys found, being on the leading edge, I'm sure it's kind of hard to connect up with other groups around the country that are doing this. Have you found other pockets of Tableau activity in public education?
In fact, this conference is great for us for that purpose. We had, I think they had told us we had 291 favorites for our session today, and I think we probably had somewhere around 200 or 225 in our session, all who are interested in K-12, because we were presenting on nothing but K-12. So for us, this is our best networking option right here. We love this. I look forward to this every year. This is my 4th year here. I couldn't be more excited. From about August on, I am just dying to get out here and see other people in K-12, because higher education has been a good market for Tableau in the past, and it's just been recently that K-12 has kind of come to fruition, and we've identified, I say we, all of us involved in Tableau have said, this is an area, a market that we've really got to tap into, and now Tableau has really put some steam behind it, and it's growing. I mean, to have that number of people in our session today, that says a lot.
That is really cool. And do you find Tableau themselves, like coming out with specialized templates or reports, or what is Tableau themselves, is this a space that they're engaging, or is it kind of driven by the users at this point?
So far it's been driven, I think, primarily by us. There is a reseller involved, one I had worked for before, I know, that has done a lot of template work for K-12 schools, which has been very helpful. To put Tableau out in a K-12 environment and say, here's a catalog of templates that's pretty much plug and play, so at least get started, that really gets the appetite going.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but that's the tough part, right?
It is.
So what would you say is the minimal skill level? Somebody's watching right now and they say, oh my gosh, I could totally use this. I'm in K through 12. I'm in a position where I could make a decision to hire this person. What or reuse an existing person. What does the skill set of that person look like? It's going to be hard to find ex-trainers.
It is. It is. And we were both lucky in that regard.
Yep.
I think you're looking at somebody who can understand just the formatting of data. Someone who uses Excel on a regular basis. And I'm not a big Excel freak, so I'm not pushing Excel. But those people who know how to do things like lookups, like pivots in Excel, creating charts and those types of things, that's the person who can, in my opinion, very easily get started in Tableau. I never did get much for formal training, even as a trainer. I did some things with our company at the time, but it was mostly just spending time on the forums and working with myself. With Tableau, you can't break anything. The data is what it is. No matter what you do, you can't break it. And that's the first thing I always tell any class I teach. Don't worry about it, you can't break anything. So it's more of overcoming that fear factor.
Very cool. That's a great point. I love that, because your data still lives in the sources. You're just putting a pretty face on it, essentially. So yeah, that's a really valid point. And what about, if you guys can, and again, if you can't talk about it, just tell me it's not open for discussion. What does your big data picture look like? Like, how many sources do you have coming through? Do you data lake it, or do you have little silos? And what does that look like in public education?
We do have a lot of disparate databases. Right now we use Tableau primarily to query against our student information system. However, we have recently purchased Alteryx now also to allow us to do a lot more, robust data blending, if you will. I mean, Tableau has a data blending component to it, but we needed something a little bit more robust. We've talked about going to a large-scale, big data style data warehouse. Although at this point right now, if we tap into our student information system, we add into that busing and food service and HR and finance, just as some library systems, as a few examples. Most of that, I think, at this point, we can take care of that via the Alteryx. Using Alteryx to bring that data together and blend it, if you will. at least buys us some time before we have to go to that next step of a large data warehouse.
Yep.
And there are some options out there for K-12 for data warehouses, but they also require a lot of money. And again, we can't just go out and improve our sales figures to raise the capital to do that. We get what we get from taxation. And so I think our bigger picture, in the long run, is to start bringing all these things together through something like Alteryx, which again, we're using quite a bit now and love it. It's a great add-on, if you will, to the Tableau. It's a great partnership. And so being able to bring all this together, that's kind of where we're headed.
Cool, and do you think that's pretty normal? Like, are you, as far as your data model goes and your data sources, is Alteryx something that would work equally as well for you as, let's say, a really underfunded, poor area? Are the systems probably pretty much close to each other, legacy-wise?
They are.
Okay,
they
cool.
are. Yeah, it's pretty much you can tap into about anything you want to. As long as it's not a proprietary database, Alteryx, in my opinion, is a great solution to look at. So.
Cool. That's a good plug for them.
Yeah, I'll take a plug.
So what, as a parent of a teacher, I'm listening to this, or a parent of a student, I'm listening to this and I'm saying, I wish we had more of this in our schools. Is there anything you think you would suggest parents can do? Just start running the ideas by who could I go and talk to in my own?
A lot of what we do doesn't necessarily end up in the hands of the parents.
Okay.
Or the students, and that might surprise people.
I just see the efficiencies,
Right.
the cost savings, and it gives teachers, like you said, better ability to see what's going on in their classroom and who's falling off, and all that.
And I think that's what parents
sense.
can do. Parents can ask the questions,
Okay.
What is it you're doing and why are you doing that?
Got it.
It's that why question, because if you ask the why, you're asking someone to validate the reason behind what's going on.
Sure.
And in order to do that, it's got to be something quantitative in most cases. Well, what better way to quantify something than using a product like Tableau that's going to analyze that data? So I think the more questions that parents ask, the more involvement they show. And I'm not talking about being a helicopter parent, saying that what you're doing is right versus wrong. Ask the questions though. Okay, you were using this approach with this group of 20 students. Why are you using that approach? What did you find about that approach that you thought might work well? Not that you're trying to put them on the defensive, but you want to understand that.
Right.
And that's when you start seeing those data points show up. Well, we had this person who put together a report for us that showed that these 12 students, or these 20 students respond better to this type of an approach based upon their test scores over time.
Right.
That's when I think people really get energized.
Cool. And when you guys started asking why internally, what were some of the big surprises that either the data showed you that you didn't expect, or that you validated, that you found out?
We found a lot of surprises. One of the things that we do on a regular basis, we have a visualization that tracks real-time attendance, okay? And it sounds like something simple. We've got a student information system that does that for us too, but this does it in a real-time situation where the moment a student is marked absent for a class, this visualization updates and shows you what is the percentage of absenteeism or students present, if you will, in a building at any given time.
Okay.
So we know right away, No Child Left Behind requires that buildings have 95% attendance for the year, or they get docked towards this school in need of assistance program. And so in real time, building administrators can watch and monitor, well, where are we at with our attendance from the first day of school to now? We're at 98.84%, or we're at 94.12%, and they see this little bar chart that changes colors from green to red. And it's interesting to watch their reaction to that, the fact that they didn't realize, that I just fell below the 95%, and they probably wouldn't have known that until it was time to report that to the state at the end of the term.
Sure.
And so now it's all right there in front of them. There's no saying, well, I didn't know that, and that's been a big paradigm shift in a good way.
Yeah, that is really cool. So, one big thing that, as you were describing that again, my parent brain is on, and I'm thinking like, I didn't know that in our own school. Like, is this something you could see? Sort of making the parents aware of, like, if your students are, if our entire attendance is below this, or I'm sure there's dozens of these regulations where the school gets docked and the parent doesn't know that. Like, I travel quite a bit and I bring my kids with me sometimes, and I'm starting to think like, oh my gosh, I'm one of the bad parents now, where I've got to start, taking care of that. How open is that community to being able to disseminate this information? Is that something schools are generally worried about telling the parents, or parents aren't interested in?
Most schools have gone through this report card structure where they actually give a report card to parents in the community of how the school is doing. Not how the kid is doing, but how's the school doing. And that's where I kind of see us going with these types of dashboards, is providing the community with a dashboard that says, here is where we are year to date for attendance. Here's where we are year to date for number of suspension days, if you will. or there's a whole variety of things like that we can show. And I can foresee a time when those are all put into a public dashboard where they can see right in front of them every day of the week, where are we at? Here's a good one for you. It might be a little scary for people, but why not show what our absolute percentage is for students and right next to it for staff?
Yeah.
If we're running 94% attendance for students, but we're at 89% attendance for staff, we've got another thing to look at here.
Sure.
And so why not be transparent? That's what we work really hard at Des Moines, is to be as transparent as we can. And so I can foresee a day when that happens.
I think we're going there, and you can't deny it. But yeah, I could totally see, the tenure and teachers generally, like you've got your own classroom, right? And what happens in my classroom is sort of my business. Do you think that might start getting a little when have we gone too far with data where?
Yeah, it's almost like you got to stay with the big brother aspect.
Exactly. There's a fine line there.
There is. When it comes to education, though, you've got to be granular. You have to be down to the student level because that's what it's all about. We want to identify students who are struggling as early on as we can to be proactive with them going forward. If I know that a student is struggling and at risk of dropping out, but it's 2 days before the end of the school year, I don't have any time to do that. So have we gone too far? I don't think so yet. I think we might be careful of that, but we've got to get down to that level of granularity. I can't just say that, well, this whole school is doing good or bad. While I need to know that data, I've got to know it more specifically too. Johnny is doing poorly. Here's where his areas of concern are. What can we do to fix Johnny? Now let's fix Mary. And so having that level of granularity, I think, is important.
Cool. And what in your studies, what are some other data points that you've tripped across that maybe you started collecting that you didn't know about before? Were there any of that stuff?
Yeah, we actually have an early indicator system we've put together that has 6 different metrics involved in it. Okay. And for each metric, if the student passes a certain threshold, it gives them a 1, if you will. So for example, attendance is a metric. And let's say if they miss more than 5 days in a term, that gives them a 1. Okay. Mobility, that's a big one that I'd never even thought about. A student moves 3 times in 2 years, they are more at risk to drop out than a student who hasn't.
Interesting.
That's a 1. Assessment scores who are at a certain level or below, that's a 1. The moment those all get added up and a student achieves, and I'll say achieves in a bad way, a level of maybe 3, that instantly on this report turns that student and their numbers red. So right away we know that student is already statistically at a higher risk of dropping out of school than a student who's not at that level of a 3, I'll call them points for lack of a better word. Right. So, again, using that to be more proactive is key for us. And I never would have thought that mobility played a part of that. It's something that never would have crossed my mind.
Totally. Yeah. It's great when we start playing with the data. The data doesn't lie. It tells the truth, and correlation doesn't equal causation, but after a while it does.
And that's one of the things I love about what I do. I love the fact that numbers in general don't have emotion.
Right.
Okay? They are what they are. Now, numbers elicit emotion, but I get to deal with just the non-emotional side of things, present the facts to the folks who have their PhDs and their doctorates and this or that or the other, and let them decide how to use it then. I enjoy what I do because I get to deal with that just the number side of things.
Very cool, I totally see that. And we've got listeners out there, I'm sure, that would like to get a hold of you. What is your contact info if somebody wants to connect with you? And it seems like you're very open and willing to share this. So.
Des Moines Schools, their school website is www.dmschools.org. Okay. Personally, my legal name is Paul Denny. I actually go by Gene. My email address is paul.denny@dmschools.org. Happy to take anything. We have shared with all kinds of school districts across the country who have called and asked for ideas on what we're doing, and we are happy to show it off. And it's a pride thing. We're proud of what we've done, and we want to keep doing it.
Great stuff. So. Awesome, Paul. Do you have any additional talks in this conference? Or?
I'm done. I had my presentation this morning. I get to relax and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Fantastic. Cool.
So
thanks for being part of ours.
Appreciate it.
Take care.